Well, first things first. Welcome home, Brittany Griner. I saw that yesterday, and we traded another one psychopath for a basketball player. Probably a good trade, but yesterday was a little bit fucking weird anyway because I guess they passed the marriage thing in Congress, and I had to sit there and watch this congresswoman doing this. Boo! Oh, this is terrible. How can we pass this thing? Think about something. I am so sick and tired of these righteous motherfuckers pulling this shit. These right to lifers and, we don't want this and we don't want that. Well, you know something? To be a right to lifer, you have to have a fucking life to begin with. And that's the problem with most of these people. They don't have any fucking lives, and their whole lives are centered around trying to make things miserable for other fucking people that they don't agree with. That's the whole thing. Be honest with you, looking at that woman crying her eyes out in Congress, I mean, I hate to say this, but some of your transgendered ladies look a lot better than she does, all right? I'm sick and tired of these fucking ignorant redneck buffoons spewing this bullshit out all over the fucking place. It's a joke. I mean, I've said this on several occasions that I've hung with thieves, hitmen, murderers, psychopaths, hookers, all kinds of fucking whack jobs. But you know something? At least with them you knew what they are and they were sterling compared to the people that we elect for public office. So now that I got that the fuck out of the way, new segment. Going to the movies with certain people, and this time we're going with Big Al, an old friend of mine who was, well, let's just say he was a little bit different. He was big as me, a little bit heavier, and he liked to get in trouble and liked to fight people. You could piss him off by looking at him and he'd slap your face. But we go to the movies. And the other story I had told was we went to see Man from Deep River, and the whole cannibalism thing freaked him out, and I had to take him to a titty bar to calm him down. Well, now we're going back to the same theater in Irvington, New Jersey, the Castle, which I always felt was sort of a doppelganger of the Liberty on 42nd Street because they pretty much showed the same movies. And the reason we were going there because there was a titty bar that Al liked. It was a pretty cool titty bar. I can't remember the name of it, but we go there after we went to a movie. So now we're going to see this brand new movie called The Incredible Melting Man. This was the poster. Looking at this poster would not get me in the door. It is the first new horror creature. Well, guess what? It ain't. But we went to see this, and Big Al's whole thing was he complained a lot. First thing he complained about was there was only one movie. And I said, well, I guess they're changing things up. He's like, oh no, fuck this, we usually see a double feature. And I come back with, well, we usually do, but usually your snoring through the second feature sort of disturbs the rest of the fucking people in the theater. So we'll go see this damn thing. So, all right, from the get-go, it's weird. It's three astronauts go up in space, and you get to see these, I guess they're near Saturn or something. You get to see these solar flares come off or whatever, and one guy starts bleeding from the nose, and I was really taken with the solar flares considering how stoned both him and I were, so that shut him up for a while. But anyway, it switches to a hospital where there's this guy laying there, and the doctors are saying, well, he survived because he was stronger than the other two. I'm like, what? So I don't know what happens. This guy gets up. Now, bear in mind that this DVD is a lot clearer and has a lot more shit in it than what you actually saw because this film was shot dark and was projected dark. So this guy wakes up, looks into the mirror, and sees that he's melting, for lack of better words. This big nurse comes in there with some blood to give him a transfusion, and she is chased out down this hall in slow motion. And why you would want to see a fat nurse get chased down a hall in slow motion is beyond me. But then we have the PO view of the guy with the two hands sticking out in front of the camera with obvious melting shit going on. So then we switch back to the doctor who calls up this general played by Myron Healy, who I have to explain to Big Al that he was not the fucking general in I Dream of Jeannie. He kept coming up with this through the whole fucking movie. Myron Healy was not the general in I Dream of Jeannie. He played a general in this film. He was also in The Unearthly as an undercover cop. But no, he wasn't the fucking general in I Dream of Jeannie, and I had to keep explaining this to him. So, in the interim, the Melting Man is dropping off things and kills a fisherman, and we see the fisherman's head float down the creek and smack on a bunch of rocks. Of course, everybody's trying to keep this under wraps, but when the locals start getting killed and eaten, people are getting pissed off. It seems that whatever happened to this guy, he has to eat human cells to keep going. So he does the fisherman. There's an older couple in a car that he chomps down on, which happens to be the mother of the mother-in-law of one of the protagonists, Birdie Benning, I think his name was. But anyway, be that as it may. After that, they're looking for the guy, and he's walking around, and he looks in the camera, and an eyeball falls out, which is pretty gross. They find his ear stuck to a bush. He goes to Janet Blythe's house from The Hills Have Eyes, and her boyfriend goes in and wants to be the hero, but he doesn't come back out. So when she goes in, she hears some chomping noise, which is obvious that he's eating the boyfriend. So he's coming after her, and she chops off his arm with a fucking meat cleaver. All right, so now he goes back to the doctor's house and lures the general out and starts eating his ass. I mean, this is all, some of the gore was pretty cool. This was an early Rick Baker thing done with a lot of Karo syrup and shit like that. And he's walking around and you see the shit dripping off him. He's leaving these sploogey fucking things on windows and everything. So the sheriff and the doctor finally corner him at a power station. And the doctor is trying to get through to Steve the astronaut, telling him that, okay. And then something happens where Steve saves his life because he falls over this thing. The sheriff shoots Steve, and Steve throws the sheriff off into the high tension wires, which he fries. More cops come up and try to shoot Steve, and he kills them. Of course, when they're shooting Steve, a bullet goes through the fucking doctor's skull, killing the only friend he has. So what they were trying to do was figure out some of this shit, because there was another 3 astronauts going up in the same thing, and you hear the news broadcast as Steve is staggering around and melting and falls next to a garbage can, and a black porter shows up for work and shovels what's left of Steve in a garbage can. The end. Okay. Not as bad as I made it sound. Actually, the Blu-ray's a little bit more watchable than what we had seen, but again, there's a lot of weird fucking take-up shots, for lack of better words. It just seemed to take up time, and it's not fully explained what happened. But be that as it may, it isn't the first time this has been done. This isn't the first time astronauts go up and a what the fuck comes down. It started with the Creeping Unknown, and that one actually had 3 or 4 different astronauts that all morphed into one. But this one is sort of reminiscent of another one that went up and came down weird, First Man into Space, where the astronaut went up and came down a little bit mutated, covered with this cosmic dust that was like razor fucking sharp, and he had to have blood to keep going. So it's sort of like the same premise. This guy had to eat people to keep going. So, it's not the first horror creature, and it's not the first time this shit's been tried. But, going to the movies with a guy like Big Al, like I said, was an experience, because you never know what he might come up with. And like I said, all through the film, he's kept telling me, he goes, "You sure that isn't the fucking general from Dream of Jeannie?" And I'm like, "Not the fucking general from my Dream of Jeannie. Will you stop and shut the fuck up?" So yeah, that was it. So that's it for today. It's Friday. The weekend's coming up. I don't know what anybody's doing, but I hope you all have a good time. I'll probably be hanging around stewing in my own juices, because I've had, honestly, a pretty shitty fucking week, and I have to reflect over some of the things that happened and figure out what I'm going to do next. So until next episode, thanks for subscribing. Thanks for telling your friends. Thanks for tuning in. That sale is still on with the DVDs and the t-shirt. If you want to help out some animals at the shelter, t-shirt's $15. Go back to the previous episode. You can see that. Oh, actually, I can hold it the fuck up. I never put the fucker away. Here it is, the wonderful 42nd Street Pete t-shirt that you can have for $15 shipped, and $10 will go to help the animals stuck in the shelters. You can send the 15 to MR42ND, street spelled out, Pete spelled out, @yahoo.com. So have a safe and happy weekend, and we'll catch you next week.